Whoa, look, it's the remains of the old outhouse.
Charles Manson pooped here, man. Wow. Hey, Wonderhussy here. I'm back at Ballarat Freedom Days, my 3rd year in a row. And there's more people here than ever this year. You can probably hear it's really noisy. We got a camp with a DJ here playing music. We just blew up some tannerite this morning, did some target shooting. And it's also really windy today, so I have to wear my microphone. Sorry if the audio sucks. But I wanted to make a video because my friends and I decided to do a little day excursion up to the Barker Ranch. We're going to take my friend's Suzuki Samurai. We're all going to pile in. And we're going to head down the valley along the base of the Panamints until we get to Goler Wash, and then we're going to cruise up as far as we can get and try to go back to Barker Ranch. Now, I made a video at Barker Ranch back in the day before I really got serious about my channel, and the production values are really bad in it, and I used some off-color language. I feel like I could redo the video and make it better. All right, let me climb into the back of the Sammy here. It should be a really fun ride. Bumpy, but it's a beautiful day. My sister and I and our friends are in the Samurai. My other girlfriend, Jessica, is in her 4Runner with a couple of our other friends. And then we have 2 guys on dirt bikes. So we're all going to convoy up the wash together for safety. All right, cool. So we're probably about halfway to the ranch. We left Ballarat, which was way back there. You can kind of see that white, dry lake behind me. Around that last slope, that was Ballarat. And so we just kind of followed this road all the way out here. And now the road has started to come up and curve around. And we're going to head up into that canyon, Goler Canyon. Now, I haven't taken this road in a few years. I think I did it in 2015, and it was really rough back then. But my friends here that were riding in their Sammy, they did this trip last year. They said the road wasn't bad at all. So I'm curious to see what the conditions are. Alright, we're about halfway up the canyon, and we came to, I think, what they used to call the halfway house, which is this old miner's cabin that back in the days when the Manson family lived up here, they used to try to drive and tote all their supplies up this friggin' miserable canyon, and this was the little cabin that they called the halfway house. And I guess if it was too dark or they had too much heavy gear and they couldn't continue on up before it got dark, they would just even stay the night here. Let's check it out inside. Okay, this is just a little wooden miner's shack. I'll go around the outside first before we go in. Pretty simple, but if you were stuck out here in a storm or something like that, you would be really glad to come across it, even just for the shade, you know? I mean, this is the end of March, and it's probably like in the 90s today. Oh, wow, look, here's a little back patio. How cool is this? Apologies if the light is challenging, and the wind just picked up again. Look at this little back patio with little table and a barbecue and some chairs, and then there's a back door to the cabin, but let's be civilized, we'll go in the front door. Alright, so there's this old wooden door. I guess maybe that's the official name. Maybe this isn't the halfway house. I think there was a sign we just passed that said Newman Mine. This is the Newman Mine. I don't think this is the halfway house. Alright, so this cabin is just a one room. It's pretty dirty. It's not meant to actually stay in, because I would guess most people that stop off in here are continuing on up to the Barker Ranch, and they just kind of stop here for a second to take pictures and leave their stickers. So there's some pretty cool stickers on this window. All these different off-road, you know, the usual ones that you see at these kinds of places. Explorers of the Mojave Desert, that's a Facebook group. You know, stuff like that. And then there's really nothing but junk, old spoon on the table. Wow. Pretty, I mean, if you really had to, again, you could hunker down in here. If it was real cold, there's a stove, you can make a fire. Here's the back door. There are actually, I don't know if you noticed, like trees and bushes and enough, you know, enough stuff where you could have a fire. So even though the rest of this canyon is pretty barren, this is like a little lush oasis. There's a lot of cool graffiti on the walls in here too. Look, Lake 3 Ruckus were here in '09. And me and Lyle here in 2015. Oh, I hear my friend honking. We better go. Much as I'd like to look at this graffiti, I think they're leaving. Here's one last one I wanted to show you though. Look at this guy. Came up here in a 1970 Chevy half-ton pickup and camper from Pocatello. Wow, that's a rough road. Okay, now I think we've gotten far enough up the cabin that we found what they called the halfway house. And again, this was called the halfway house by the Manson family when they lived up here at Barker Ranch. They would go into town to get supplies. So they would bring like cans and cans of food and bottles of water and, you know, heavy stuff. And they couldn't get their car all the way up to Barker Ranch because the road's rough. So they would go as far as they could. A lot of times they had to pack it on a backpack and it's heavy. So this was like their halfway point where a lot of times they would just stop and either take a break or even spend the night. Or even I think some of them would stay down here as a kind of a lookout situation. Anyways, it looks like a really cool cabin. Let's check it out. Okay, so here's the beautiful canyon we just drove up. And you can see there's little bits of old mining detritus scattered about here and there. Old shot up barrels. And then the road comes up here and leads up to this really nice stone cabin. Like 2 cabins, and then way up the hill there behind our cars, I'm not sure if you can see because of the sun, but there's a bunch of old mining infrastructure up there too. So this was some kind of operational mine. In fact, you can see it going all the way up the hillside back there. Goes all the way up there, so there must have been some kind of mine up at the top. Interesting, but this was the cabin, I guess, that the people who worked at that mine lived in, and this is the cabin that the Mansons would call the halfway house. So let's go in and check her out. We have 3 buildings here. 1, 2, 3. I guess we'll just start out. This is just really more of a shed here on the side. So it won't take long to investigate this. Oh wow, there's an old toilet or something here. But there is nothing in here now. Just totally, looks like this was a bathroom at one time. Wow. But it was like a separate building from the main building, which is over here. And this looks like it's gonna be super fun to look in. We'll just go around the corner next door and go in this door. And look at the stonework here, by the way. These walls are amazing. All made out of, I'm guessing, just stones that they found here, and it's pretty impressive. This construction's good. Wow, look inside. Holy moly. Look at this room. I mean, this was actually a really nice place at one time. It was wired for electricity, tons of storage, really cool old wood-burning stove. Looks like that was a refrigerator. Plenty of coat hooks. I mean, the ceiling has seen better days. Oh wow, there's even like, looks like mold almost, which is very rare in the desert. Huh, we got some old newspapers and magazines down here. We have USA Today, oh, from 2016. That's not that old. That's not interesting. What else we got here? Oh, Copenhagen. Somebody was having a nice little chaw. Or like a Mammoth Mountain ski magazine. Gross, I didn't want to touch it. Oh no, look. A Holy Bible shop full of bullet holes. I'm not sure how people are going to feel about that. Yikes.
We're all okay. We haven't forgotten anything today. We're good.
Okay, and it looks like there was a bedroom off to the side here. 1 bedroom. Look how creepy it is. Yikes. Wow, look. A Star Wars garage stool. Really? All the way up here. Now let's go to that 3rd building. There's 1 more cabin up here. This cabin here is made out of cinder block. Oh, concrete, not cinder block? Oh, my bad. Look at this. This one was also, this was like a work shed, I guess. Nothing exciting in here. There's nothing left in here, but look at, little rats have been in here piling stuff up. Yikes. Oh, look, there's the rest of that Copenhagen tin. All the way over here. Well, this is a pretty cool little cabin, but I think we better get back on the road because we still got a ways to go before we get to Barker Ranch. And that's where we really want to go. Wow, we're almost there, look! Woohoo! We finally made it. And that road was nowhere near as bad as it was the first time I came up here, let me tell you. Let's go look. You have entered Barker Ranch. Help clean up, keep it alive. I mean, I'm not kidding. When I came up here before, I think, like I said, it was 2015, that road was way worse. Now, that was earlier on in my off-roading career, so to speak, so maybe I was just more easily spooked back then. But, man, that was nothing compared. I mean, I had to be winched up. The first time I came up here, I was in a friend's 4Runner, and there was one part that was so steep we couldn't get up. And he was an experienced off-roader. We had to be winched up by a couple that happened to be ahead of us in a Hummer. But this time, there was nothing that would have even required a winch. It was pretty smooth sailing. And now we're here at Barker Ranch. So let's check it out. Okay, so the deal with this ranch was the Manson family. If you don't know anything about true crime, Charles Manson had this kind of band of hippies that they all lived in Los Angeles, but they were looking to escape from the city because they had this weird, like, apocalyptic worldview. They thought the world was about to end and they needed a place to escape and hide out in the desert. Well, one of the girls in the Manson family, I think her grandma or her aunt owned a cabin up here. Not the Barker Ranch, which we're at now, but the next door ranch, which is called Meyers Ranch. So they went up and stayed there for a bit, but then they found this place and they liked this one even better. So they ended up finding the woman who owned this, and they gave her some gold Beach Boys records. They happened to have some, it's a long story, but they knew one of the Beach Boys and they had some Beach Boys gold records. They gave her one in exchange for letting them stay here at Barker Ranch. So the Manson family lived here in this cabin for, I think, few years on and off. And what's noteworthy about it, though, is this cabin is where Charles Manson was arrested, where he was apprehended. And they didn't even know that he was responsible for any murders at that time. It was just the Park Service coming up to investigate some vandals. They vandalized a bulldozer in Death Valley because the bulldozer was destroying Mother Nature. They were big environmentalists. So the Park Service was just trying to figure out who vandalized the bulldozer, and they traced it up here to this ranch. Like, it's probably those hippies up at that ranch. So I don't know, they got some kind of proof, enough to get a warrant. So they came up here at dawn. One morning, they came up that canyon. We just drove up at dawn and surprised the Manson family while they were still asleep. They came into this little cabin, and if you look at this cabin, it's pretty small. I mean, most of it burned down in a fire, I think, in 2009. This was one of those cabins where it was stone part way and then wood timbers the rest of the way. So all the wood parts have unfortunately burned down, but we can still get a pretty good idea of how small this cabin was. Look. So it was just a one-room cabin, look. I mean, this was like the big living room. I think there was probably a big dining room table in here. That looks like there was a stove or a refrigerator or something there. I mean, I don't know if they had electricity, so maybe there was no refrigerator. In fact, I don't think there was electricity. But yeah, all you can see now are these crumbling ruins of it. It's so creepy. And look, even a built-in bench. This must have been like the breakfast nook, because it's right here off of that main room. Oh, I don't know why there would have been a stove there if there's a fireplace there. It seems to me that's where they would have done the cooking. But maybe they had a stove too and kitchen cabinets. I've seen photos online of what it looked like before the fire. And I think it was just pretty much a standard big old farmhouse style kitchen. Fireplace must have been separate. This was like a little eating nook. Back here, it looks like this little alcove was just kind of a pantry maybe. And then back here was the one bedroom. I think it was just one little tiny bedroom, and it's not very big. And I think there was something like 20 members of the Manson family living up here, so you tell me how they all fit in this bedroom. I think they also had a school bus up here that a lot of them slept in, and then there's another building over here, a bunkhouse, that a lot of them slept in as well. But this was the main cabin. But yeah, so at dawn, the Park Service and I think some police came up here, raided this cabin, rousted everybody out of the cabin. But there was one more person hiding in the cabin. They didn't know that. One of the officers went back in to do one last check, and it was dark, right? It was pre-dawn. And the whole house, there was no electricity. He had a candle, and he went around from room to room just to make sure there's nobody left in the cabin. And then he thought, well, let me check in the bathroom. Even though it's a tiny little bathroom, you can see here. Let me just go in there, shone his light around. And at that time, there was not only a tub, there was a toilet, and then there was a little, like a vanity with a sink over it there. Well, when he shone his candle into this room,
he saw a little piece of hair coming out of the cabinet under the sink, and that was all he needed to open that door of that cabinet, and there was Charles Manson hiding in there. Can you imagine? I mean, it was a tiny little cabinet under a sink, and Charles Manson was only about 5'3", which is my height, so you can get an idea here. I'll show you. He just scrumpled himself up. Imagine the cabinet is still here. And he was scrunched up in it, but one piece of his hair was hanging out the door, and that was all it took for the law enforcement officer to go, wait a minute, open the door, get out of there, you hippie. Took him down to the jail in Independence, and I think they were all arrested on charges of vandalism or suspicion of vandalism. They didn't even know they were responsible for any murders at that time, but that's how they were apprehended. And eventually in prison, the story came out. One of them started talking, and next thing you know, the whole thing came out. But yeah, right up here in the middle of this desolate canyon. And it's funny to think, if that one officer hadn't come back to check with that candle in this bathroom, Charles Manson might have gotten away. But yeah, like I was saying, they had a school bus up here, and that road we came up, there's no way you could get a school bus up that. They brought their bus over that way from that side. That's the, I guess, the eastern slope of the pass. It's called Mengel Pass. It's supposed to be a pretty burly pass, but the eastern approach is a little bit more gradual, and they drove a school bus up that, and then, I don't know, I guess they parked it down here somewhere at the base of the ranch, and a bunch of them would sleep in there. But look, here's the bunkhouse. Let's check out if there's anything left in the old bunkhouse. Wow, I mean, the stories that I've read about this place, it's really cool coming back here now. Oh, the bunkhouse is in pretty solid shape, actually. Look at all this graffiti of people who've been here. Wow, bacon sandwich, super tenaire. Well, that person sounds fun. Oh, look at this, some political graffiti. If the Republican people had their way, this place would remain free to enjoy forever. The only trouble is the Republican government will make it impossible to afford. Whoa, switcheroo. I thought that was going to be a pro-Republican graffiti, and then it turned out, I don't know. Hey, look at this graffiti. Stoner Van Houten, Spawn Ranch worker. Hey, what's interesting is it looks like there was something painted on the wall, and then they came in here and painted over it, right? Like, was there something super offensive written, I wonder? Huh. Weird. Oh, look, there, it looks like there was even an old trail register here, but it's... There's no pages left. There's no pen. I can put one of my stickers here, I guess. There we go. Oh, that sticker's kind of trash, but it's all I had with me. Gotta let people know I was here. If you're interested in the Manson family at all, like the history of that, which I am for some reason, even though it's sick and twisted, it's just fascinating to me. And I've read a lot of books about them, Helter Skelter and all the main ones, but the best book that I've read, or the most interesting one that I read, I should say, and it addressed a lot of the stuff up here, was by this guy Paul Watkins, who was a member of the Manson family. He was one of the real good-looking young guys that they used to recruit women. Well, he wrote a book, and it's a free online download if you look it up, Paul Watkins Manson Family book. And it's really interesting. He talks a ton about his time up here at Barker Ranch and the other miners and people that they met up here, and just fascinating characters. It's really interesting. I mean, having been here and gone up that road, reading his book about them backpacking up with backpacks full of canned goods and water, like, those hippies were hardcore. Okay, checking around the grounds at Barker Ranch here, there's this really cool old stone, well, it looks like it was a swimming pool. I mean, there must have been some water source up here. I guess there's a well or something. I mean, if you look around the valley, it's fairly green. I know if you're not from the desert, you probably think, what the heck is she talking about? It's all brown, but this is very green for the desert. So there must have been there's probably some underground water source. As a matter of fact, yeah, I don't know if you noticed, as we were driving up the trail, you saw water trickling down. So it is a wash. There's some kind of water that comes down here. Interesting. It is. It's really a lush, pretty little valley up here, little high mountain valley. And when that ranch was still standing, that cabin, it must have been really cozy and a really cool place. I think this was a fully functioning ranch at one time, because you can see over here there's some old ranch outbuildings, like a livestock pen maybe. Chickens were kept here, probably, little small livestock. So I don't know if the Mansons themselves husbanded any animals, but they could have. I guess my point is that you really could have a fully self-sustained ranching operation up here, a little tiny high desert ranch. How cool would that be? Whoa, look, it's the remains of the old outhouse. Charles Manson pooped here, man. Wow. Okay, wow, look at this. Because we're technically in the boundaries of Death Valley Park at this point, there's even a little informational placard about Barker Ranch, family getaway. There's a picture of how it used to look before it burned down. For reference, that's how it once looked. And that's how it now looks with all my crazy hippie friends. Actually, my friends aren't all hippies. They're just kind of a ragtag band, and like a couple guys that we just met, in fact, that are like dirt bikers, so they're definitely not hippies. Anyways, my group that I'm with. But yeah, this informational placard. I'll stop here. If you want, you can pause it and read all about it. It just tells you about the history of Barker Ranch, these ranchers that built it back in the 30s or 40s, and then the Manson family taking over, blah, blah, blah. It says it was destroyed in an accidental fire in May 2009. Darn it. I sure wish I could have gotten up and looked at that ranch before it burned down. I came here once before, like I said, in like 2015. It was November and it was really cold. There was no snow on the ground, but it was cold. And we camped. We had a big fire right down here by this fire pit. And what stands out in my memory is that it was just so freezing that I was sitting almost in the fire. I was so cold. And we were just constantly stoking it. And so I don't recommend spending the night here in November. Right now, like I said, end of March, April, it's perfect. It's a great time of year to be up here. It's kind of spooky. If you can imagine spending the night at a creepy, spooky old ranch like this, you're brave. Okay, before we head back down Goler Wash and go back to camp, we thought we'd stop off here at the Manson family's old trash heap. This is the trash heap for the Barker Ranch. Look at this. Okay, wow, this is like decades and decades of rusted old, look, washing machine drum looks like. Looks like some part of an old grill, an old water heater, mattress coils, shoe soles, cans of every size and vintage, bullet holes or no. Holy moly. Look, I mean, you could dig through this trash heap for a month. Part of an old chair. Wow. This is a trip. Oh, there's a lot of old glass here. Look at all these old cans. Wowzers. Some of this stuff's really old too. Like, look at this old green bottle. I mean, that's an old bottle, right? Look at it. The shape of it. It looks like an old soda bottle or something from back in the day. Dang. And then look at all those old cars back there. Let's go check those out. I mean, these people must have just dumped everything they didn't want here, including cars. Who knows? These could have been stolen cars. Manson family. Okay, that looks like some kind of old Buick or something. Let's see if we can figure it out. You guys probably already know from looking at it. But it's actually not in that bad of shape considering it's fairly whole. I don't know if that was an Oldsmobile or a Buick. Huh, pretty cool. Look at that old truck. It's funny to think of the places that truck has been, the things that truck has seen. Whew. Beautiful rust on it too. I mean, look at that, all the different paint jobs that that truck's had over the years. Pretty cool. Lots of bullet holes. Holy moly, look inside the cab of this truck. There is nothing left to tell us what kind of truck it was. Old beer bottle. That's kind of an old one, right? It's like an old Budweiser bottle. Wow, so much surreal history up in this cabin. Really a cool place to check out. I mean, it's kind of like a macabre history, I guess, and it's not for everyone, but it's kind of part of the American tragedy, part of what made the 1900s such a weird century. You know, a lot of things changed for us in the 1900s, 1960s, 70s. Whew. So it is kind of an interesting part of the tapestry of history. Even if it is a grizzly part. I'm glad I came up here. But hey, now we got to head down because it's already 5 p.m. and, you know, starting to get towards that time of day. We need to get back down to Ballarat where Freedom Days Festival is going on. And supposedly there's an old timer down there who has 100 pounds of TNT he's going to blow up tonight. And we do not want to miss that. So we better get back.